The text hit like a slap. "We're keeping the wedding small and intimate. Hope you understand." That's how I found out I wasn't invited to my own brother's wedding. The one I paid for. He didn't even pretend. He said I didn't belong. And the worst part, my mom backed him. My dad told me I was too sensitive, so I did the only thing they never expected from me. I stopped begging to be loved, sat back, and let the truth do what it always does, show up on time in public with paperwork. And it arrived before the ceremony did. Before I tell you everything, I just want to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes knowing someone is listening makes all the difference. Thank you. I'm Zephyr Caldwell. And if you've ever been used by the people who should have protected you, please subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because this channel is where we stop paying for disrespect. Now, let me tell you what happened. It was a Thursday night. My living room sat in perfect stillness, just like I left it every day. The remote aligned with the coaster. The plant watered on schedule. The floor spotless like always. A quiet, predictable space in a world I tried hard to keep controlled. 10 days before the wedding. 10 days before I thought I'd watch my little brother marry the woman he adored. 10 days before I believed I could finally feel like family again. I had convinced myself this wedding would be a kind of reset. A way to prove to myself, to them, that I belonged. That I wasn't just the organized one or the reliable one, but someone they wanted around. I paid the deposit without hesitation, $25,000 to Canyon Light Estate. I even wrote on the envelope, "Gavin and Sloan Dream Day," in a rare sentimental moment. I needed to believe I was doing something good. Then the text came. From Sloan. I remember the exact vibration pattern. I remember the blue bubble on my screen, the cold precision of her words. "We've decided to keep the wedding small and intimate. Thank you for everything you've done. Truly. Hope you understand." That was it. That's how I found out I wasn't invited. I stared at the message like my phone had glitched. Like maybe there was more text coming. Like maybe I'd missed the real point. I reread it 7 times, and still it said what it said. I wasn't on the guest list. I looked at the coffee table, at the envelope with the contract inside. My handwriting now looked pathetic, naive. I reached for the framed photo sitting beside it, me and Gavin, age 7 and 9, standing by the lake holding sticks like swords. I had always believed that version of us was still somewhere under the years, under the fights, under the silence. I held that photo so tight the glass cracked, a single fracture across our faces. One line, like something split clean through a memory I'd clung to for decades. I needed answers, not a fight. Just answers. I called Mom, Lorna. She picked up like I'd interrupted her at a spa, not like I was her eldest son calling about a life-changing betrayal. "Did you know I wasn't invited to Gavin's wedding?" I asked, skipping all pleasantries. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. "Don't make this about you, Zephyr. It's Gavin's day." So yes, she knew. I paid for it, I reminded her. Quiet but deliberate. Well, she replied, "If you're going to help all the way. Don't stir things up now." Dad's voice chimed in faintly from the background. Hank always half present. "You're being sensitive again. Just let it go." And then click. They knew. They all knew. This wasn't a last-minute decision by Sloan. This was a family-level agreement. A silent, calculated choice. I stood in my living room, phone still warm in my hand, the cracked photo in the other, and the envelope of money on the table. I realized then I wasn't family to them. I was a budget line, a sponsor, a tool. The question echoed, if they knew and still took my money, how long had this been the plan? And then a memory surfaced, something my mom said a few months back, half joking after a family dinner. "You always outshine Gavin, and he hates that." Back then, I laughed it off. But now it sounded like strategy. The next morning, I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to find the proof. I needed to know. When exactly did they decide to cut me out, and why? My mind replayed a dinner from 3 weeks ago. Gavin had announced the engagement. Mom clapped. Dad poured wine. Sloane gave a charming little speech about love and new beginnings. They mentioned Canyon Light Estate, and I could see the hesitation behind Sloane's smile. Gavin muttered something about looking into options. He'd been jobless for over a year, though no one used the word unemployed. It was always in transition. Without thinking, I said, "Let me take care of the deposit." My treat. The room changed. Suddenly, I was the favorite. The hero. Everyone was warm to me for a full 5 minutes. I handled the paperwork myself. I coordinated with the venue. I took it on because that's what I always did. I didn't just pay for things, I carried things, for all of them. And now, I wasn't even allowed to attend. I typed in the wedding website URL. The homepage popped up Gavin and Sloane smiling in a golden hour engagement photo. I clicked Our Story. They'd written about how they'd saved for years, how they'd built this dream together, just the two of them. No mention of the person who made that venue even possible. Not one line. I wasn't just uninvited, I was erased. I opened Instagram, typed in the wedding hashtag, photos loaded, the bachelorette party, cake tastings, venue walkthroughs. Mom was in one of them holding a mimosa next to Sloane, the same woman who told me not to make it a thing. And there in another photo was my cousin Tessa. She smiled next to Gavin 2 weekends ago. We'd had coffee days after that photo. She never said a word. It wasn't just Gavin and Sloane. The whole damn family had picked a side. Then another blow, an email from Canyon Light Estate. As per the groom's request, your access to the planning portal has been revoked. All communication will now go through Gavin and Sloane directly. I stared at the screen. My name was on the paperwork. The invoice had my email. My card was on file. They used me. And now I was locked out. This wasn't emotional. It wasn't a mistake. It was strategic. Then the twist I didn't expect, a notification popped up on my phone. Sloane had accidentally shared a private Pinterest board with me. I opened it. It was filled with wedding ideas, dresses, themes, a photo of a sibling group in coordinated outfits with a note scribbled beside it. Glad he's not coming, he always makes Gavin look small. Another pin read, G talked to his parents, all aligned. Zephyr won't be there. There it was. Not just a mission, a plan. They didn't want me because I didn't fit the image. I was too polished, too put together, too much. Later that afternoon, another message from Gavin. Mom and Dad agreed. It's for the best. Don't take it personally. And like that, speculation turned to confirmation. I pulled out the receipt, checked the dates. I matched it to their posts. They had been planning my exclusion while smiling at me across dinner tables. I was never meant to be at that wedding. And just as I sat down to process that, another text. From Mom. Don't forget venue's final payment is due tomorrow. Can you handle it? No mention of what I'd just learned. No apology. Just a reminder to pay up. And that was when I knew. They didn't cut me out last minute. They built the whole thing without me in it. And the only thing they needed from me was silence and a credit card. The sky outside had dimmed to that burnt orange haze Austin gets before a storm. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by fragments of my trust emails, screenshots, a copy of the wedding invoice with my signature on it. I hadn't slept. My hands trembled, but my mind was no longer spiraling. It was focusing. On facts. On paper. On power. Miles arrived 20 minutes after I called him. I barely got the words out on the phone. He just said, I'm on my way. He let himself in like he always had, like family would. He took one look at me at the chaos on my table and didn't say, You okay? He said, What the hell did they do now? I showed him everything. The message from Sloane, the family group thread where I was excluded, the email revoking my planning access, the Pinterest folder, every ugly manipulative detail. He didn't tell me to let it go. He didn't try to sugarcoat anything. They've used you your whole damn life, Zeph. And now they're using your silence. You sure you're going to give them that too? My phone buzzed 3 times in a row. Mom, please send the remaining payment for the venue before noon tomorrow. It's the final step. Gavin, Sloan says the catering deposit is due. Can you handle that? Sloan, do you have the updated layout for the ceremony arch? I want the aisle flipped. Not one message asking if I was okay. Not one acknowledging what they had done. I wasn't a person. I was the logistics team. I stood up, walked to my home office, pulled the folder labeled Wedding Contracts. My version of a battlefield map. Every receipt, every contract, every signature mine. I wasn't just a helper. I was the legal contact, the responsible party. I called Nadia Serrano, our in-house legal counsel at work. I told her it was personal, not company-related. She still picked up on the first ring. I need your eyes on something, fast. I think I might be sitting on a legal nuke. Within 20 minutes, Nadia confirmed, you are the contract holder on the venue, also the rentals, and the lighting. You have cancellation rights. You'd pay a penalty, yes, but you're not locked in. If you keep sending money without clarifying your role, you could screw yourself later. This isn't about feelings, Zephyr. It's about liability. She paused, then added, do they even know you're the one on the contracts? And that was the moment. I thought about how they'd cut off my portal access, demanded more money, told everyone else it was all their doing. No. They didn't know. They never asked. They assumed I wouldn't fight back. Because I never had. That was their biggest mistake. I didn't cancel anything yet. But I printed every document, created a spreadsheet, labeled vendors by priority, added notes on cancellation terms. Miles came into the office holding 2 coffees. You about to blow it up? No, I said. Not yet. First, I'm going to set the table. Then I'm going to let them choke on their own entitlement. An email pinged from Canyon Light Estate. Please confirm the payment contact for final billing. Current contract lists Zephyr Caldwell. They could revoke my access to planning portals, but not the law, not the truth. The next morning, 9 days before the wedding, I brewed my coffee and stared at the mess-turned order on my desk. A color-coded spreadsheet of vendor contracts. A calendar marked with deadlines. My phone lay face down, vibrating every few minutes. I wasn't rushing into destruction. Not yet. I wanted to offer them something rare, a final boundary, a line in the sand, just to see what they'd do with it. I crafted a message, clear, professional, void of emotion. Until I receive in writing confirmation that I am a guest at the wedding, a defined role during the event, and an explanation for my removal from the planning process, I will not authorize or process any additional payments. I sent it to all 4, Mom, Dad, Gavin, and Sloan. No insults, no theatrics, just facts. A wall they couldn't manipulate. The first reply came from Mom. After everything we've done for you, this is how you act. Sometimes I think you're only happy when you're holding something over people. Then Dad chimed in, can we not just make this easy for everyone? Why does it always have to be so dramatic? Gavin, of course. You love control, don't you? Can't even let your own brother have a day without making it about you. Sloan, if you're trying to turn this into some emotional intervention, don't. This isn't your story. It's ours. Not one of them addressed the actual request. They didn't deny removing me. They didn't apologize. They just attacked. I called my mother. No message this time. I wanted her voice. I wanted the pause, the hesitation. Did you know they told me I didn't belong? Did you read that message? Silence. I'm on every contract. I paid for the estate, for the food, the lighting, the entertainment. Did you know that? More silence. So I'm asking you, do you want me as your son or do you want me as your wallet? You don't get both. Her voice cracked just a little. Just enough. Gavin needs this Zephyr, just this once. Let him shine without you standing next to him. There it was. The truth, in one breath. I wasn't a threat to the wedding. I was a threat to his image. Later that afternoon, I reviewed the vendor estimates again. Something didn't sit right. I found an itemized line for upgraded menu items, special decor add-ons, and additional lighting features I never approved. These weren't part of the final payment they claimed. They had been stacking extras, assuming I'd just sign off, just fund it. Quietly. Then came the call that tipped the scales. My Aunt Meredith. "Zephyr, honey, I just wanted to say how proud I am of Gavin. Saving for this wedding all on his own, years of hard work. What a man he's become." I almost laughed. So that was the story. Gavin the Phoenix. Gavin the self-made groom. My part scrubbed clean. I wasn't just being pushed aside. I was being erased. And that's when I knew. The boundary I set wasn't to create peace. It was a test. And they failed it with flying colors. I began compiling everything. Every quote, every false claim, every insult typed in a message thread. And I emailed Nadia. "They're not stopping. I need to know my options." They didn't just want my money. They wanted the credit. And they wanted me invisible. But I wasn't going to disappear. Not anymore. I sat in the company lounge, my salad untouched laptop open in front of me. My fingers hovered over the keys, but it was my mind that was racing. The air around me buzzed with casual conversations and the hum of microwaves, but I felt as if I were sealed off in a glass box. I wasn't just thinking about canceling a wedding. I was preparing for a storm. Not just any storm, but one backed by truth, lined with receipts and delivered with surgical precision. I messaged Nadia. I needed a second pair of eyes, legal ones. She didn't hesitate. I sent her the full spreadsheet of vendors' copies of contracts and every document I could gather from my inbox. Within the hour, she flagged key risks, venue, catering, florist contracts, all under my name. Cancellation clauses were clear. Some would cost me penalties, but nothing close to the emotional debt I'd been carrying. More importantly, she reminded me, don't say anything over the phone. Document everything. If I talk to anyone, note the time and content. And if the family started spinning stories to relatives, prepare a neutral, firm reply, something clean and drama-proof. Later that night at my kitchen table, surrounded by paper and backlit screens, I stumbled on something that made my stomach drop. One of the vendors, a design firm handling floral and lighting, had an updated email contact listed. Not mine. Gavin's. When I traced back the change, I saw a forwarded message asking to switch the primary email due to project role changes. The contract still had my name. They'd been working behind my back, adjusting visibility so I wouldn't see changes, likely hoping I'd keep paying while they stayed in control. That night I checked Venmo for any forgotten deposits. That's when I saw it, a message Gavin had sent months ago. It had been a joke back then. "Thanks for funding our child-free circus." I remembered laughing nervously when I first read it, brushing off the sharpness. But now it landed differently. It wasn't just a joke. It was their unspoken assumption I'd always pay, always stay quiet. By midnight I had started what I called the record. It was a folder with 3 subfolders, documents, screenshots, timeline. In it went the uninviting text, the email removing me from the portal, the Pinterest board Sloan had accidentally shared with me, the string of messages from my family demanding money but not accountability. The facts were no longer scattered. They were organized, time-stamped, and safe. The next day my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Phil Henderson, Sloan's father. His tone was careful, probing. "We just want to make sure everything's in place. Gavin and Sloan said they've been handling it all themselves quite impressively. But I was wondering." He paused. "Is it true you've been helping financially?" I didn't answer. I let the silence stretch. The weight of it did the talking, and I heard it in his voice, confusion turning into concern. He'd been sold a fantasy, but the truth was now leaking. That same evening, I got a text from Elliot at Canyon Light. "Just wanted to check in. Gavin asked about transferring coordination to another party. Also, Sloan mentioned a potential technical glitch excuse if things shift last minute. They were already drafting a narrative, prepping their exit plan in case I pulled the plug. They were scared not of me, but of exposure. It was time. I outlined my strategy like a battle map. I wouldn't alert them. I'd cancel everything directly through formal channels. One vendor at a time. Each with confirmation. No drama. No scenes. just consequences. The morning sun filtered into my office like any other day. Coffee in hand, I opened the documentation folder, then opened my vendor list. There was no room left for hesitation. I would execute each step with precision. One by one, the cards would fall silently and cleanly. I called Canyon Light Estate first. Elliot picked up. I told him calmly that I was the contract holder for the upcoming event and was exercising my right to cancel. He didn't sound surprised, but he did sound cautious. "We'll process it today and send a cancellation confirmation along with the fee breakdown," he said. "But please note, since we provide bundled services, this will trigger cancellations across related bookings. Security, bartending, valet. They're all tied to the master agreement." Perfect. It meant I wasn't just pulling one thread, I was unraveling the entire tapestry. Next up, catering. I confirmed the contract number, acknowledged the cancellation fee, and asked for immediate written confirmation. The woman on the phone hesitated. "Are you sure, because the bride specifically said you wouldn't be attending?" Her words stung but proved a point. They had told vendors I wasn't even invited while still counting on my payments. I hung up, added the conversation log to my file. Photo and video. Cancelled. Florist. Done. Band and DJ. Gone. Cake and dessert vendor. Wrapped. Each call left a paper trail. Each email was labeled and filed. By noon, it was done. I had gutted the event without ever raising my voice. They wouldn't know until it was too late to fix it. That's when the real noise started. My phone lit up with calls and texts in rapid succession. 12 missed calls from my mother. 5 from Gavin. A string of messages from Sloan that read more like panic than anger. "What the hell did you do? Are you serious? We can fix this, just talk to me." I didn't answer. I screenshotted each one, filed them under Fallout. Then came a message from my dad. "There must be some miscommunication. I'll speak to the venue myself. We'll sort it out." That told me everything. They still believed this was salvageable. They thought I was bluffing, that I'd blink, that somehow my guilt would override my dignity. But the last file I created that evening proved otherwise. Final package. Inside, vendor confirmations, legal notes from Nadia, screenshots, contract copies. I sent her a simple message. All done. Clean documentation. No loose ends. Then I texted Miles. It's over. Outside, the world kept moving like nothing happened. But in a week's time, the people who tried to erase me would be standing in front of an empty venue, wondering how the narrative they crafted so carefully crumbled so easily. And I'd be nowhere near it. Not to see their faces. Not to gloat. Just to breathe. Because when the lies fall apart, you don't need to yell. You just need to stop holding them up. 2 days before the wedding that would never happen the way they planned, I sat in my office overlooking downtown Austin, watching the sun drop behind the skyline through glass walls. The messages had been coming in all morning like artillery fire. My mother crying in voicemails about how I was destroying the family, my father trying to rationalize the situation into a negotiation. Gavin alternating between fury and begging, and Sloan as always calculated and strategic. Her messages suggested a private talk, not to make amends but to extract something. There was no mention of the text that started it all. No one asked how I felt. They only cared that I had pulled the plug. When Gavin showed up at my office, I wasn't surprised. He brushed past the front desk and stormed across the open-plan floor like a man trying to stake a claim. Heads turned. He slammed his hand on my desk, his voice rising, almost shouting. "What the hell did you do? You don't have the right to do this." I didn't stand up. I didn't match his energy. I simply looked up and said I stopped financing an event I was explicitly told not to attend. My legal colleague Nadia appeared from the hallway, trailed by Jen from HR and Marcus, one of the senior project leads who happened to witness everything. They weren't just colleagues anymore, they were shields. Gavin, caught in the glass box of my office with a growing audience, snapped, "You just had to ruin it for everyone, didn't you? You couldn't stand not being the center of attention." I didn't flinch. I repeated calmly, "You told me I didn't belong." And then Gavin said it, the sentence that sealed everything. "We only needed the final transfer from you. Whether you showed up or not didn't matter." There it was. Before the security team even escorted him out, before he shouted something about me being dead to the family, the truth was out in the open. I was never invited. I was only ever expected to fund it. That night, the online smear campaign began. Sloan posted vague, emotionally manipulative stories about a jealous sibling sabotaging their wedding. My mother called distant relatives and neighbors to spin her version of events. People started messaging me with well-meaning guilt trips. Can't you just let it go for one day? It's family. I sent one message to everyone, carefully worded with Nadia's help. I was excluded from an event I financed and contracted. I exercised my legal right to stop payment. I will not be discussing this further. Later that night, a cousin sent me a screenshot from the extended family group chat. In it, my mother had written days earlier, "If Zephyr acts out, say he's going through something. Keep it vague. Mental health or something." So that was their plan. Not to apologize. Not to fix what they broke. But to discredit me in advance, spin the narrative, make me look unstable. By morning, the messages shifted. Panic was wearing thin, replaced by desperation disguised as reconciliation. My mother wrote, "What will people think of this family?" My father followed, "Let's find a solution everyone can live with. Just come, we'll talk after." And Gavin, ever the chameleon, texted, "We were wrong. Please come. We're doing it at the Travis County Courthouse tomorrow at 2 p.m. Attached was a makeshift digital invite hastily designed, more apology to the public than an invitation to me. But they didn't realize I had already spoken to Elliot at Canyonlight. I had asked him to be ready. If the moment came, he would deliver the final statement, not me. And now the moment was coming. I planned to go to the courthouse, not to save them, not to be welcomed, but to stand in the room when the lies finally caved in on themselves. It was 1:57 p.m. when I stepped out of my car and crossed the street toward Travis County Courthouse. The sidewalk outside was filled with confused guests overdressed for a courthouse ceremony, clutching small bouquets and store-bought gifts. Some looked annoyed, others puzzled. The change in venue hadn't been explained. Inside the ceremony room felt like an afterthought. Folding chairs, a sad arch of artificial flowers, cheap speakers buzzing faintly. It felt like a rehearsal that no one cared about. My mother spotted me and immediately crossed the room. "Good," she whispered, a hint of command in her voice. "You came to your senses." I didn't reply. Gavin approached next. He leaned in and muttered, "Let's talk after about the penalty. We can split it or whatever, not an apology. Just a business transaction. Still expecting me to clean it up." Sloan greeted me with a plastic smile. No eye contact, no sincerity. She posed for photos with her bridesmaids, acting like nothing had happened. The ceremony began. A civil officiant in a beige suit read from a script with the enthusiasm of someone counting ceiling tiles. Gavin and Sloan exchanged vows about respect, honesty, commitment, each word echoing against the hypocrisy in the room. The air grew heavier as they spoke. Even the guests sensed it. Something was off. And then, at precisely 2:12 p.m., the doors opened. Elliot stepped in holding a leather folder. He walked down the center aisle like a court officer. "I apologize for the interruption," he said. "I'm Elliot Vargas from Canyonlight Estate. I'm here to deliver formal documentation regarding breach of contract." He handed documents to both Gavin and Sloan. These outline the outstanding penalties and associated costs resulting from the event's cancellation under the contract signed by Mr. Zephyr Orion. The room froze. Guests leaned forward. The officiant stepped back. Elliot continued without malice, just facts. "We understand there may have been miscommunications. However, we were led to believe this event was funded and managed by a family member who was later excluded from participation. Someone, perhaps Sloan's father, asked the question that changed everything. Who paid for all of this? I stood. I did. Until I received a message saying I didn't belong. The words carried not with volume but with weight. Final. Irrefutable. I didn't ruin this wedding. I just stopped financing a lie." Murmurs rippled. Guests looked at each other. Someone stood. A woman clutched her purse and left. The officiant, unsure what else to do, rushed through the final declarations. There was no applause, no celebration, just the dry sound of folding chairs scraping the floor as people made quiet exits. My parents were silent. My mother's face was pale. My father stared at the ground. Gavin and Sloane clung to each other, isolated in the crowd as reality rearranged itself around them. They had gotten married, but the image they had built, the one they tried to sell to the world, had collapsed in front of witnesses. As I walked out into the late afternoon light, I ignored the phones ringing in my pocket. I didn't need more messages. There was nothing left to discuss. I had shown up. I had stayed silent when I could have screamed. I had let the truth walk in uninvited. And now finally I was free. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their approval. I had drawn my line. Some relatives reached out later quietly to say they understood. A few apologized. Others simply said they were proud I stood up for myself. I began therapy again. I started rebuilding what family meant to me, not by blood, but by choice. And I stopped asking what I was worth to them. I already knew. And now so did everyone else. Some people will tell you family is everything. That blood always comes first. That no matter what happens, you have to forgive because they're your family. But standing outside that courthouse with the late sun hitting my face and the echo of my brother's wedding vows still ringing hollow in my ears, I realized something I wish I had understood years ago. Family is not defined by DNA. It's defined by respect, by reciprocity, by the unspoken agreement that love should never come with a receipt or a leash. What they wanted from me wasn't love. It was loyalty without limits, silence without dignity, and money without meaning. And for the first time in my life, I said no. I didn't shout. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't humiliate them online or crash the ceremony with some dramatic outburst. I simply stopped playing the role they wrote for me. A role that required me to be useful, but invisible, generous, but quiet, successful, but never too much. What hurt the most wasn't being excluded. It wasn't even the betrayal of knowing I paid for a celebration I wasn't welcome at. It was realizing just how long I had accepted scraps in exchange for my silence. The way they erased me from the story and rewrote the past to fit their comfort wasn't new. It was just louder this time, bolder. But something broke free in me that day, something important. I saw myself not as they saw me, but as I truly was, a person who had worth beyond what I could give, a son who deserved to be seen, a brother who had every right to expect love that looked like love, not obligation masquerading as tradition. If you've ever been in that position, sidelined, used, manipulated by the very people who should have stood by you, then maybe you know the quiet rage I carried for years. Maybe you've also tried to earn a place in a house that was never built with you in mind. And maybe, like me, you've finally reached a point where you stopped asking for a seat at the table and started building your own. That doesn't mean it was easy. Healing rarely is. There were nights I replayed that message, "You don't belong," until I could recite it in my sleep. There were mornings I woke up angry, grieving the version of family I thought I had. But through it all, I kept returning to one simple truth: I chose myself. I chose peace over proximity. I chose clarity over chaos. And I chose boundaries over breakdowns. My family may never apologize. They may spin their version of events, forever convincing people I was overreacting or selfish or cruel. That's their right. But I have the receipts. I have the truth. And more importantly, I have my freedom. These days, I don't chase invitations. I don't beg to be understood. I don't measure my value by how much I'm willing to sacrifice to be tolerated. I surround myself with people who show up with open hands, not expectations. People like Miles, like Nadia, like the small circle of friends who called just to ask how I was not what I could do for them. I'm not bitter. That's the part people misunderstand. What I am is awake. And once you wake up to how small someone else's version of you is, you can't go back to sleep. So if you're watching this, and you're in a similar place, if you're the one who always gives, always fixes, always bends until you break, let me tell you something. I wish someone had told me a long time ago. You don't owe anyone your peace, just because you share their last name. You don't have to bleed quietly to keep the family portrait clean. You are allowed to walk away from people who only value what you do, not who you are. And if you do, that's not betrayal. That's survival. That's reclaiming your story. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. If this resonated with you, if it made you think, made you feel, or maybe just made you feel a little less alone, consider subscribing. I've got more stories to tell. Some are raw, some are healing. All are real. And who knows, maybe next time we'll talk about how to rebuild when the people you thought would be your foundation let you fall. Until then, take care of yourself. Be the family you never had. And never forget you belong, even if they said you didn't. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had just kept quiet. If I had paid that final invoice, smiled through the discomfort, and showed up like a good little brother sitting in the back row while pretending none of it hurt. Maybe the wedding would have gone off without a hitch. Maybe there would have been cake and dancing and staged family photos where I stood off to the side, cropped out later. Maybe I'd still be sitting at their table starving for approval. But that version of me, he's gone. Not in anger, not in spite, but in quiet survival. Because somewhere between being uninvited and being expected to fund the fairy tale, I realized I'd been conditioned to confuse tolerance with love. And once I saw that clearly, it became impossible to unsee. It's a strange kind of grief, letting go of the hope that one day they'll change. That maybe someday they'll look at you and see more than what you can give them. But grief can be a form of clarity too. It clears the air. It makes space for something better, something real. No one teaches you how to protect your peace from people who share your blood. No one tells you that sometimes choosing yourself will look like betrayal to those who benefited from your silence. But I'm telling you now, it's okay to disappoint people who never cared to truly know you. It's okay to be the villain in their version of the story if it means being the hero in your own. I didn't ruin the wedding. I revealed it. I didn't destroy the family. I stopped funding the illusion of one. And in the end, I didn't need their permission to walk away. I only needed the courage to stop asking for it. Now I'm not telling you to burn bridges just to feel powerful. I'm telling you to stop setting yourself on fire to keep bridges warm that were never meant to carry you.